So we are here with Jenny Burghard. She is the owner and proprietor of Lonely Angel Tattoo. And we have had many artists on our show before. We've never had a tattoo artist.
Okay.
So, and first of all, Lonely Angel. Where does that come from? That sounds so sad.
Sad? I don't know. It came from a song. I'm really bad at naming things, but my boyfriend and I were on a really long road trip through like the swamps of Florida, and some song came on, and honestly, I can't even tell you the name of it, but it was like a line in there, like the Lonely Angel, something. And he's like, "What's a good name for a tattoo shop?" And I was like,
Well, they never have happy names like this. This is the unicorn show. It's it's like Black Rose.
A little bit more like gothic, I guess. But yeah, the more I wear it, the more it fits, I think.
And how did you get into this art? Because you've been doing it for how long now?
About 3 years.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And this was, I think you told me it was a COVID?
Yeah, it was a COVID transition. So prior to COVID, I was teaching English for about 6 years.
At what level?
Pretty much every level. So I was doing English teaching, so ESL, and I would teach everything from preschool to adults, and then just kind of travel from country to country. So it was I loved that. That was my first job. I thought I would do it forever.
So you were teaching English, and how many countries did you?
I've been to over 30 countries.
Holy smokes!
I've taught in about 7 or 8. So you'd have to count.
Okay. Yeah. So you're an itinerant at heart. You like to be traveling.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. A little bit of a nomad. But Tucson's the longest I've stayed anywhere since I was a kid.
What brought you here then?
Hard to say. I feel like we're doing the story backwards. But I don't know. It was one of those places like someone was like, I think you'd like it. Because of COVID, I didn't really want to be in big cities anymore. And I couldn't teach and travel. So I was kind of looking at places in the U.S. to stay, and something about Tucson just drew me here.
Where were you right before Tucson?
Alaska.
Okay, so yeah, it seems very natural to go from Alaska.
Yeah, from the cold to the hot.
That's pretty much normal. So you moved here, and were you doing tattoo work prior to coming to Tucson?
No, it was really something that, when I was teaching, I never considered myself an artist. Like, it was always something I did on the side for fun. For a hobby, in your free time where you're kind of lonely in a new country and you have, no one you know yet and stuff. But I never labeled myself as an artist or really thought much of my work, or never, ever, ever anticipated having a career in art, let alone tattooing.
So were you were doing art though? You were an artist of sorts. Were you painting? Were you drawing?
Yeah, I was just drawing for fun. I studied history in college and education, and art was something I hadn't touched since like elementary school. But when, you start traveling and living abroad, and, you have a lot of downtime, so you need hobbies. And like I said, especially when you're in a country and you don't know anyone yet, you're looking for stuff to do. And art was always something that was like a really nice kind of meditative thing for me. I like doing it to, draw gifts for people, like decorate empty, tiny apartments that I'd be living.
What was like your inspiration? Was it where did you have something like just internally, or was it external, like whatever country you were in that sort of changed and influenced what you were doing?
Yeah, definitely that. I think at first it was more just like for the fun of it. And I just have sketchbooks of like, oh, I was sitting in this park and I drew this, monument or something. Because you remember it a lot more clear when, you could take a photo of a monument, but I'll look through my photos and I'll be like, I don't even know where that was. But if you sit there for like an hour and draw it, you remember in detail.
Oh, wow.
So it's always just kind of like a fun little thing for me.
So when you go down memory lane, you just go through like your sketchbook. And
yeah, exactly.
Some people take selfies and they have it on your phone. You're like, I just sketch this.
Yeah, I have dozens of little tiny sketchbooks. And sometimes like the art's not even good, but it's meaningful to me just because I was like, oh yeah, that was a place I'd lived or something like that.
Fantastic. So then you're teaching the world English, you're traveling. Clearly the world shuts down, and you decide it's time for a change. And I don't think of myself as an artist, so I'm going to do it on people's bodies.
I mean, kind of, I guess. That's a big jump to it. Like, it happened so gradually. But yeah, like, it took a lot of steps to get here.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm just teasing on that, but I know you made that transition. But what drew you to the tattooing? Like, what was that element that was different than maybe just being in drawing or painting?
Well, like, I love teaching so much. Like, I'd done it for so long, and I had planned to do it, I think, for my career, for my life. And what I loved about it was that, like, personal aspect of, you know, you're the teacher in a classroom and you have students in front of you, and that's like an automatic, like, conduit for amazing relationships. Like, people are vulnerable with you, they open up, they're learning a new language, and you're able to kind of, you know, get to know them and get to know their lives a little bit and their stories. And that was, I think, when I thought about why do I love teaching English so much, besides just like the weird grammar and the nitty-gritty of the language and all that stuff, that was the biggest reason why. And I couldn't imagine a career that I was like, that I would love as much as that. And I didn't want to, like, it was so hard to try to compromise, to think like, when COVID hit and we didn't know like what was going to happen, it was changing the whole landscape of like ESL teaching. Everyone was moving online. I tried teaching online, but I hated it. It just kind of took away that personal aspect. And I was trying to think like, what's next for me?
So then you get into it, and I guess, and I hadn't really thought of it, but when you are a tattoo artist, it's a very personal, it's a very communicative skill.
Exactly.
Whereas you're an artist, a lot of times you're just within yourself and you're creating something, but now you're executing other people's visions sometimes, and trying to interpret what they're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what appealed to me about tattooing, was the fact that, like, you can draw a beautiful painting and that's so personal to you, and that's something that I love about art. But the side of it that's like so much more dynamic is when you share it with somebody and they're like, I have no idea why you drew this, but I connect with it from my own perspective, and then they tell you why. And it's like that same kind of like conduit for you to be able to learn a little bit about somebody, and very like interpersonal. And tattooing that to like the 100th degree, because someone has to sit in your chair, want your art on their body forever to change the way they look. They have to be vulnerable and in pain and really uncomfortable for a long period of time with you. And then, you know, they're giving you something important to them a lot of times. Like, this is the image that, you know, it means something to me for whatever reason. And they share that with you when they're sitting there. And it's like, it's just a really, I think, wonderful way to connect with people who do art at the same time.
Do you find yourself becoming like a therapist for them?
Sometimes, yeah.
Talking through this, why I'm getting this change?
Yeah. I'm not a licensed therapist, but we do talk about tattoo therapy. All you need is like a nice moment to just vent about whatever.
Do you have, you don't have many tattoos yourself, is that?
No. When I first started learning to tattoo, when I did my apprenticeship, I had just one. And it was like, nobody thought I had any. They would come to the shop and be like, can I talk to an artist, please? I'd be like, it's me.
Is there a reason why that you don't, or is it just not your style?
It's just like, I was never in the tattoo culture. Teaching English as well, like I would go to countries like Japan and Asia and stuff where they're a little bit more sensitive about your professional appearance, and so it wasn't on my radar like that I wanted to be tatted up for a while. And then my family as well, they're super just not connected to the tattoo scene at all. So it was never something that I had like dove into before. But then once I started doing it, and I'm like, of course, I need to have the experience more times to know what I'm doing with my clients. So I would get some more. And so I'm working my way there. But I'm picky. There's a lot of artists I want to travel and go see and get tattoos from.
There's that travel again.
Yeah.
Travel again. So now, and this is what kind of prompted this interview. I don't know why I was surprised, but I was surprised to learn that it's common for artists then to travel and maybe work in a different city for a period of time. Yeah,
it's definitely doable. I do guest spots pretty often, a couple a year. Or I should say, like, I'm getting into it. I did a couple last year. But that's, I think, another part of the industry that appeals to me a lot, is that, you know, it doesn't take a lot of equipment. You pack up your suitcase and you can go a lot of different cities and places.
Is there licensing requirements?
Yeah, state to state, it's different.
Okay. So you just have to get your everything. Is there like reciprocal states where if you're licensed in Arizona, you can work in these states, or is every state got their own requirements?
It's not too strict. There's a lot of states that don't have any requirements. And then a lot of the bigger cities and states, they require just the basics. Like you need a certain certification that, you know, I already have. And it's pretty simple.
And then from a business standpoint, and again, this is me. I don't have tattoos. I'm not in that culture. So I'm learning quite a bit just about how that sort of works through a community. But you don't work for a shop. I mean, you have your own place. That seems to me like that's tough to build a clientele. It's tough to get this audience, and you just decided, hey, I'm going to do this, and it seemed to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I'm amazed at it too. I think that's like the power of art and doing something with, I guess, good intention. I'm shocked, especially ever since I moved here to proper shops, the clientele that's coming to me and the, ways I'm able to connect with them and, hear their stories and stuff. And the projects they give me are stuff that they give me because they're like, I want it in your style because it speaks to me for whatever reason, which is like I'm so honored when people say stuff like that to me.
So they come to you with a vision, but they don't want you to copy what they've given you. They want you to make it you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why they have the artist. That I guess the artist makes a difference in as to your style and interpreting their vision.
Definitely. That's what's exciting for me, like, creatively.
And did you open up Lonely Angel right away, or did you work for another shop here?
Yeah. I moved to Arizona after Alaska. I was oyster farming in Alaska and just like figuring things out. And then when I decided I wanted to pursue tattooing, I came here, and a shop apprenticed me in town, and I worked for them for a year.
Okay. Is that a requirement that you? I assume it's a requirement that you apprentice. I mean, you're doing some pretty significant connections with the body, so I'm sure you have to have some.
Yeah, I mean, well, tattooing's kind of crazy because there's no rules.
Wow, it's good.
Yeah. So there's people that you'll meet that are like, I'm self-taught. There's people that do years of apprenticeship time in a shop. But it's not like, you go to beauty school and then you have a license. Like, there's no rules.
Wow.
But for me, I'm a former teacher, so I love having kind of like being in a classroom, so to speak, or having kind of a formal way of learning. So I wanted to actually work in a shop for a little bit and learn that way.
So you built a following here in Tucson. How does that translate when you maybe go to Chicago or New York? Do you just start all over, or do people know you there, or how does that work?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, big cities are nice because it's easy to find people, and social media. I have such a love-hate relationship with it, but it's super useful when you travel and you kind of put out little notices like, hey, I'm at this convention or this guest spot, and then the shop that invites you or hosts you is also just like super key in kind of getting the word out and being like, we have a cool guest artist, maybe you'd like them, and then you usually get enough clientele for a week.
And do you see in your travels, is it more of you're gravitated towards a bigger community, or is there like if you're in New York, do you say, oh, I want to go check out Tucson for a while, or is it everybody kind of wanting to go to the bigger cities?
I think for tattooing, prices vary a lot based on the city.
Okay.
So it's more useful for me to go from a small city to a big city because, the hourly rate's a little bit better versus if I say to friends in Chicago, like, hey, you want to come guest spot at my shop in Tucson? It's fun, but they're not going to be able to make the same hourly rate.
They're going to take a pay cut.
Exactly.
But they'll have a paid vacation. They'll have a somewhat paid vacation.
Yeah, exactly. So
plus, they hang out in Tucson in the middle of the winter when they're knee-deep in snow. So it's not a bad trade-off. Have you had people come and guest with you?
Not yet, but I'm hoping to kind of get into that in the next years.
Tough questions, but what are some of your favorite places? Are they in the United States? Are they overseas? What are some places that when you think back, you're like, man, I got to go?
I don't know. Like, I've loved every place I've been, but for different reasons.
I know, it's a hard question.
Yeah. There's definitely cities in the States that I love. Definitely COVID, if it did anything, it taught me how much in the States we actually have to appreciate because I spent so much time abroad that I was kind of like, whatever, the United States is boring. But no, it's not. And even Tucson, like such a small, underrated city, but I think it's really magical here. I'm loving it.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, if you are missing any of those hidden gems along the urban core, listen to Life Along the Streetcar downtown.
Absolutely.
Find out about all of that stuff. And when you're traveling, I'm assuming, but again, I don't know, that out of country, you can't tattoo necessarily. I mean, I would think there's some restrictions on that, or it doesn't matter.
Same deal. I'm looking into that now because I'm hoping to guest spot internationally this year. But yeah, different countries have their own regulations. It's definitely doable. It just requires a little bit of research. And then, tattooing is not quite like teaching English. I could pick any country and find work in a couple weeks. But with tattooing, I'm like, I got to research the market. Like, who's coming for tattoos and what's the style, how much money they make in. Like I was in South America 2 years ago, and I was checking out everybody's ink, and I was like, where'd you get that done? How much did you pay for it? And
You were that person in the bar.
I was just doing my research,
Okay.
just in case. But what they charge there is like way lower than what you could make here. So it's always like a trade-off of all those different factors. And then language barrier, which was never a problem with me teaching, is a little bit more about.
Okay. Yeah, I guess.
issue.
Yeah. I would imagine if you're trying to put something very specific on someone's body, that's the translation of each word probably means a lot.
Yeah, and booking and all that stuff. But I mean, that's what like visual language is for too. So maybe it's doable.
And I've seen it at the shop that you have, at your shop within the proper shops. You're selling some of your art as well. Is that common for a tattoo artist or?
I think so. It depends definitely on like what your goal is as a tattoo artist. There's some people that are like, skin is my canvas and I don't even draw on paper. And then there's other people that, they're more like me where they started on paper and then they moved to skin. And so they're just so completely different mediums. It's like acrylic paint versus pastel crayons or something, tattooing on skin versus drawing on a piece of paper. So I like doing both.
Yeah, that just not knowing seems a little bit unique to me that because it is like a completely different style in the process. And how have you found the community in general? Is it welcoming to people that enter into this industry? Or are they starting to close off like your competition?
I would say, and again, like I'm not an authority on this because I've only really been in the community for about 3 years. But there's this really interesting kind of American tattoo culture that is coming out of like eras of being like a very underground subculture where they're kind of criticized for their tattoos and they're like tough as a result. And nowadays it's so common and popular, and the technology as well is so much easier to work with and learn, I think, that it's super widespread. And so it's not just kind of like, being tough guys getting tattoos. It's everybody.
Right.
And there's a little bit of pushback and, intermingling of these different kind of spheres of art. And especially like as the technology advances and you can do even crazier things and like old school traditional art, which is like an incredible art in and of itself as well. Like it's a super dynamic kind of art world right now. Even like going to conventions and seeing like all these different styles and then the artists behind them. It's really fascinating.
Technology and tattoos, it's like, again, it makes perfect sense when you lay it out, but not something that I would have thought about. And I can see that. I'm wondering if it's getting even easier to do or less painful to do, or is that, and you're like, no, it's definitely,
I don't know.
We're still big.
That's why I'm like, I really kind of wish I had gotten one of those old school tattoos by like crazy heavy machines, because most of mine are just like very fine line as well. But yeah, technology is interesting in the way I feel like it's coming into the field of tattooing, because there's so many things that we still do like the old school way that I'm like, why do we do this? It's just like a waste. And then there's other things that like people are talking about. Oh, AI is going to tattoo you and you're going to stick your hand in the machine and it's just like, there you go. And just I have no idea what the future of it is.
I can't even get my key made properly at home.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick my arm in there for a tattoo. Not for a while.
Not for a while, but
I know it's a love-hate relationship, but how do people find you? Is it social media?
Yeah, for the most part, social media, and then word of mouth. That's why I love Tucson as well, because it's a small enough community that I would say at least 50% of my clients come to me because somebody else told them about it.
And other social media, is it Lonely Angel Tattoo, or is it, what is it?
Lonely Angel Tattoos.
Tattoos, okay. Mm-hmm. And Instagram and Facebook, or? Just
Instagram, and I have a website as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? And you are still taking new clients, I assume, while you're still in Tucson?
Mm-hmm, yeah, absolutely.
Any plans to leave town anytime soon?
I've got a guest spot planned for Miami in April.
Oh, nice.
And then, like I said, I'm looking to do something in the UK and maybe like Europe sort of later in the year.
Well, if you're interested in a Lonely Angel tattoo, it sounds like you might want to react a little bit more quickly before she's off into the world. Jenny, I really appreciate your time today. I learned quite a bit. I'm excited for all of the success that I see in front of you.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much.